Welcome to CFO Principles interview series. Today we're exploring how businesses are built with Brandon Cooper, the CEO of Aphid. And Aphid is a company that looks to automate your business. They're looking to use AI to automate repetitive tasks and reduce operational costs. So Brandon's been able to do something amazing, which is why this interview is really interesting to me. He's taken his idea, his passion, and taken it from absolutely nothing to an entire company with a full-blown team is supporting him and driving him forward, and has been able to do all of that without external capital. And the team is not small either. Typically in tech worlds, it takes millions of dollars to get to the position that he is, and he's been able to do that with no external capital at all. So let's kick it off. Brandon, let's talk about the beginning at first. Tell us, where did the company start, why, and why did you choose to embark on such a challenging journey?
Aphid was created. I was working at a big tech company and just working a lot of hours, man. And I know so many people around the world can relate to that. And you're in an environment where you're doing more work than what you love. If you don't love it, right, that thing is gonna wear and tear on you. So I was sitting there at my desk and I said, man, I wish I could just clone myself and have another version of me working for me. And I ended up leaving the company and started Aphid. So Aphid is an insect that can actually clone itself at a very fast rate. The babies are actually pregnant and their babies are pregnant. So it's almost like a telescopic development in their reproductive system without a partner. So it's asexual reproduction. It's a very unique creature. So that's where the name comes from. But we've created an ecosystem that allows a person to have robots working for them. And when they work for them, you get paid. So it really was created out of a calamity where I was just stressed out and wanted to make money without trading time for it.
Oh, great! I mean, you're building a business out of your own frustrations. You gotta love that. That's how
Yeah.
it is done, huh? So your product is in beta right now, right? And
Correct. Correct.
so how long did you go from kind of I quit my job and I'm going to start Aphid? I assume that there was a period when when there's kind of deliberation, starting to figure things
Mhm.
out. But then once you actually started building the product to its current phase, how long did it take you? What was the journey like?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken over a year and some change just to get the development and build the team out. But we've grown so fast because before I had an idea about the company, we made a pivot into AI. So I got with our CTO, Sean Ross, and we started talking and we saw the future of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. And we got working on it.
Great. So it's in terms of, so do you have any pilot testers right now? How did you approach kind of acquiring those pilot testers? Did you just approach your close network? Did you market for it? How did you go obtain those people?
Yeah. So what we're doing to put things into perspective, we're getting all of these businesses within our network. So what we're doing is we're working through chatbot. So a chatbot is just a virtual assistant that works on a website. So we're going to start with B2B, which is the SaaS model. We go to the businesses, we talk to them and say, hey, we can automate your processes, whether you're in banking, whether you're in cannabis or whatever it may be. And then we talk to those clients and brought them into our pilot. So we have a whole sales team that's head by our VP of sales, Jim Hutchison. But we're just reaching out to those clients, getting them on board for the pilot. It's completely free. And then after the pilot, they'll start to pay their monthly premium for our service. So all of these clients on the B2B end will be using a control panel where they can change the decision tree of the automated responses for their particular website. If they want us to build it out for them post pilot, then we would charge for a setup fee to create that for them. So once we set up the network of all of these websites, that's where we're going to open it up for the everyday person and allow their robots to work on those websites. So you can have a branding bot working on that website and you're just sitting back watching your bot. And if they need the human, you can interject.
Yeah, great. That sounds pretty darn interesting. So the when you say your close network, so you actually chose to have a sales team right away, right? You kind of develop the product, and then the sales team right away that actually goes out and acquires those. You didn't go kind of the dirty way of like, hey buddy, can you
Yeah.
test out my product?
Yeah. The sales team, I've definitely assisted because I'm the spokesperson for the company as CEO, but the sales team deserves all the credit. They work day in and day out just to get the letter of intent and bring those clients into our program. But the team, we grew last summer. I want to say we were roughly at almost 20 people, which is fairly huge. And then to now, we're almost 35 people in the company. We did all of that without funding.
Without funding?
We did all that without funding.
Oh well, I don't want to disrupt the flow of this interview, but well, I'm definitely interested in that piece. So, um, what while you were building the product and while you were building the team, right? So those are pretty key components inside of any business, especially a technology business like this. What did you have any pivotal points, any points in the business where you said, "Hey, you know what I originally thought is no longer the case. We need to shift." Did you have any of those?
Yeah, we were going to start with B2C first.
Mhm.
And, but they wouldn't have, those bots wouldn't have had any websites to work on. So we went B2B first to get all of the websites in our network. So when we do open up the B2C where your robot can work on those sites, you can get paid. So you get paid off leads, commissions, tips. If the Lewis bot comes up and it says, hey, you're a subject matter expert. So you're basically shadowing another version of you. So now instead of you going into a job, working, waiting 2 weeks to get paid, you have 40 versions of yourself working at the same time. And using blockchain, if the transaction is done in cryptocurrency, you'll receive it same day.
Interesting. So you want when you say sites, you're saying that. Can you elaborate on that piece? 'Cause I don't think I understood that very well. So,
Yeah. So so for instance, you own momandpopshop.com. We as
mhm.
Aphid come to you and say, hey, you can use our chatbot solutions. You can pay XYZ a month and we'll provide you with the solutions. Right. So you just pay your monthly
Got it.
to
So it's
use the
attached to
automated bot.
Jetbox on like let's say a website. So
Mhm.
if I am a customer service rep, kind of manning the chat box and requests on for a particular company, I can actually the Aphid will do that piece for me, and I will just interject whenever necessary.
Right. So if that's your business, momandpopshop.com, we as Aphid provide you the chatbot solution. So your website one. Now let's say your friend is website 2000. We have
Mhm.
2000 websites in our network. We're going to open it up to the everyday person like your mom and my mom to say, hey, mom, create this bot so it can work on the website based upon you. So now they're sitting back watching their robot become a salesperson on the websites that we've gathered for them. It's
Yeah.
something that's completely new, to wrap your mind around. Because we're so used to, okay, well, we do the work and then we get paid. But now we create a version of ourselves that's a salesperson, a digital agent. And then when it goes out to the network, it's Summit basically. When someone comes to visit their website, the Lewis bot comes up and says, hey, welcome. How may I help you? And it's just like you. But instead of you sitting there doing live chat, you've automated your responses to help that person on that particular website.
Got it. Yes. Understood. So on when you were building and going from 0 to 35 people that you're at today, right? How would you define like those different phases in terms of headcount, right? Because obviously the challenges that a business has when they have 2 people versus when they have 5, 10, and 20 and
Yeah.
30 are a bit different. How do you define those kind of those phases and in headcount, and what were some of the challenges that you were encountering at the different levels?
Mainly, we do it's been a pandemic, obviously. Everyone's working through it, but we've built all of this virtually.
Mhm.
There are many members who've never met each other in person. So some people aren't in Los Angeles, like we have a decent amount of team here in LA, but there are people on the team that are in different states. So just building that out can be a little challenging and keeping the morale up. But the team has done a great job of the circumstances and building virtually. And then finding the right people too. You know, I'm an energy person, so it's not really, there are a lot of people who have a great skill set, but I would rather work with a person who's a lot more hungrier and willing to learn, and I don't have to babysit them. That everyone on it, I hate the micromanaging style. That's just never been my style. To everyone on our team, you know, you're the CEO of your own position, and that's how we run it. That's how the culture is here at Aphid.
Great. Awesome. All right. So let's dive into kind of the overall strategy and the infrastructure of Aphid here. You already mentioned some pieces about how you've kind of gone through and built some of the team, but um, what when you were building the team, what functional units did you start with first, and why? So did you go sales team first
Mhm.
or dev team first, or how did you go about it?
I actually went in the wrong direction. We probably had so we had our CFO, we had our CTO, obviously, but our tech team came a lot later. We had a bigger sales and marketing team before our tech team. But we fixed that pretty quickly. Sean has a pretty big tech team now. Um, but yeah, just making sure that we were, you know, strategy, right? We have our, like Lucy, she's our CSO, our chief strategy officer. Just making sure we were doing the roadmap in the right way, just, you know, putting the phases in the right way, and we nipped it in the bud.
Got it. So, and also when you were building the team, then you started with. Did you start with lower end talent, where in kind of entry level individuals, or did you start with the high end, where you brought in people like the chief strategy officer first and build a team underneath them? What was your strategy of building a team there?
Yes, the biggest goal was for me to bring in someone that's not a lot like me. I look really far in the future. And you know, I'm very Elon Musk when it comes to it, Nikola Tesla, whoever you want to use as your example. And I'm a little out of this world, right? Like, you know, I know I'm talking about these things, and you're like, okay, I got it. Like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But um, bringing in our COO, Chris Carter, he's a complete opposite of me. So he will just take a lot of things and then just chop it down to, you know, make it a lot different. So that was the key component for me, was to not have a yes man on the team that worked side by side with me. And then from there, we had our marketing head was a big key, because our motto is free society. So our campaign that we're going to come out with is going to be really huge. I wanted to make sure it was someone that shared that vision. So her name is Alexandra Stone. She's awesome. But that was the next piece. And then that's where we started to work into different departments. And I put tech into the forefront.
Great. So, and on the while you were building the product and while you were establishing the uh, bringing in your beta testers, obviously by that point you kind of had to have a pretty good idea of what the pricing structure is going to be, right? Because you expected to eventually convert those people into paying customers. How did you approach structuring that the pricing for the service?
Yeah. So for our model, we have a three-tier system. So our first tier is going to be for SMBs, which is pretty cheap. We just looked at, you know, what the competition was charging for their service. We want something reasonable where they can at least say, okay, this is what we want to do. And then the mid level, we wanted to leave some things where we had some premium features that the businesses want. So we do have some features in that particular tier that we haven't let out yet, just yet. I would love to disclose if we could, but just a few features in that particular tier that's a lot higher in price. And then
Mhm.
in the future, we're going to have the ones for larger enterprises. So data, machine learning, deep learning data plans for them. And that can range from 7,000 to 50,000 a month. Just depends on how much data they want to use, which requires us to scale out, have data centers, things like that.
Great. So I assume when you were building that out, right, you're did you did you and your CFO kind of sit down and think through your profit centers and your cost centers and structure that? What was that conversation like when you guys were going through that exercise of building that out?
Making sure that we didn't go too big too fast
Mhm.
and start small, what we could afford to do in house. If we needed to do some in house and do a little bit of contracting just to get a little more legs. And sometimes a bigger team doesn't mean faster production, right? You can have a smaller team because it's a lot less for them to manage, right? The big key for tech teams is just making sure your team isn't working in silos. So again, that can be difficult during pandemic, and we have to do things virtually. People are social distancing, right?
Mhm.
But that was the conversation that we had, is just make sure we stay lean startup, go into phases. And then as the funding comes, eventually seed and series A, we can expand and do the things that we want to do.
Great. So um, now, as you look back, and as you were kind of progressing through this, are there any pieces within when you first started, kind of the start of the business from its very inception, when you were kind of envisioning the business economic model as to kind of how you're going to go out and price customers, how you're going to go out and build a team and so on? Is there anything within the economic model that when you started wasn't is not at all what it is today, and what were some of those changes?
Yeah. So the the pivot part that I talked about, it was formerly Aphid Byte. It was a completely different business model. It had nothing to do with what I was talking about.
Mhm.
It was about a creative economy, and we wanted to basically allow people to have control of their publishing rights, use smart contracts to
Mhm.
to maximize their income. And I made a decision to say, no, the future is AI. This isn't it. Something was pulling me. It was just it was something in the atmosphere that was just pulling me and yanking me in another direction. So I've completely we hadn't launched. So I said, okay, well, once you say you're selling hamburgers at McDonald's, no one wants to eat your pizza. So I understood, okay, if you're gonna pivot and you're gonna change the model, just don't do it at all. So I shelved it. I was like, nah, nothing. This isn't it. Let's just figure something else out. This is a tough industry, because I was looking at the economics of it and said, music business is a very tough business. SoundCloud and other places are trying to figure it out, trying to become profitable. Like, all right, well, we still have to make profits no matter how great it is. So it was shelved. And then that's when the issues happened at work, where I was like, all right, well, man, work was just stressful. And I was like, man, I've always had a passion about disrupting 9 to 5. I always hated 9 to 5 jobs and things like that. And then that's when the name came. So it was a if you've seen the Social Network, when he said drop the
Yeah.
just Facebook, it was like drop the byte and Aphid byte, just Aphid. I was like, yeah, and the insect clones itself, right? So I'm like, perfect. Boom, that's it. And then we got going on it, man.
So um, by switching to kind of the AI model, did that change what type of talent you had to hire? Because obviously, engineers that can do code, AI code, are
Yeah.
considered different than engineers that I'm going to say regular or traditional. Did that change at all? Kind of how you perceive the cost structure of your business?
Night and day.
And
It's a lot more. It could be a lot more expensive to run a media company when you're dealing with streaming, video streaming, music streaming. Uh, Takes up a lot of bandwidth, right? Just to stay afloat, and figuring out a business model that works, and then to keep all parties happy, right? The subscribers who's paying monthly to stream, and all of these different things. It was tough. So it's a lot easier in the pivot, because a lot of what we do for chatbots and things like that is just basic JPEGs or text or decision trees. It's a lot less data before we get to the deep learning and machine learning aspect of it. It's a lot easier to run. Yeah.
right. So as you're building out the team, right, and you're going, what was the time frame that you went from zero to now? Uh,
For
in
the
terms of
the team size,
yeah, team size.
So the team size was from March of 2020 until now. So I
Oh,
think at that time it was in March we were maybe at about 12 people,
okay.
and then in the summer we had a huge uptick,
Uh-huh.
and we have interns now. I mean,
And
it's really growing.
how did you go about managing the performance of that team, right? Going that fast,
Yeah,
making sure that everything, especially that no, you're not in the same office, right? So you can't hear your
right.
neighbor saying, "Hey, I'm working on this," and you're
Mm.
working on that. How do you manage the performance?
Bringing in leaders and trusting those leaders to run those departments
Mhm.
is really key. I wanted to make sure when the people came in, they could run the show as if it's their own show and trust their subject matter expertise. If they need me to sign off on something, I oversee everything, and my eyes are everywhere. But I wanted to bring in people that I knew I didn't have. That was really big key is making sure I didn't have to babysit anyone.
Mhm.
The team that I had before, a lot of them had to be babysat, and it's tough to motivate people, when you're not cutting them paychecks, right? But the team that we have now, everyone is here and sees the vision and understands that of where we're going, that is going to come. So I love them for that. But to answer your question that I didn't answer about the the talent of what we had to bring in, yeah, the on the tech side, we have to have machine learning developers and things that we didn't have to have for the creative economy
Mhm.
business model that we had prior. So night and day in talent.
Yeah, and obviously that uh, did the. And this might sound a bit crude, but did the quality of talent, well, like at the very beginning when you were hiring versus now when you go out to hire, is are your requirements significantly different, or are they more or less the same in terms of here's the type of experience I'm looking at, here's what they should have had under their belt, and so on?
Yeah, in terms of tech, it's senior level and up from here. Junior level. Once we have more senior level people on the tech team, and as we grow, get funded, we'll bring in more junior level. But right now, it's a lot harder to get in the company
Mhm.
um, to join as it was before. Where someone may have lacked a little bit and things like that, if they were willing to learn and they can, tech is a lot different, right? You can teach a little more on project management and things like that, but on the technical skill side, you want someone who can hit the ground running, right? Because time is against you.
So, and then uh, the question that I meant to ask at the beginning, but decided to hold out here. So you mentioned that you kicked this off without funding from the beginning. Is that right?
Right.
So give us the spiel. How did that happen? Because that going from 0 to 35 people in such a short amount of time with no funding, it sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Really, just they believe in my crazy self. Honestly, um, it goes. People give me a lot of credit for building that team out. My team does, right? Say, I don't know how you did this, but yeah, they saw my vision and seeing it makes sense to them, and believing in something because we lose as adults, we lose our imagination and our optimism and things. Because when you're a kid, you're free, you're thinking about all the things that you can do, but it starts to shrink as we start to get older. You're like, yeah, this, but we don't have that child excitement. And that's why I wake up every day with that child excitement, and it just reverberates through the team. But we grew so fast in the summer last year. I mean, it was like every week it was someone just like, boom, yeah, I love to join. Please, this is awesome. Glad to be here, and everyone's showing up throughout the week, every
That's
day.
and then how'd you cover the bills?
We making it work, man. Bootstrapping, like I mean, some people, not everyone's full time. Obviously, I mean, people have to take care of their homes, but there are some people on the team that are full time and just making it work. And got their savings, and we're putting in because we're actively going for our raise now. So
Oh,
we look to close. Yeah, we look to close really soon.
What this is going to be your Series
Seed.
C, or are you going
This
for
would
an
be seed. This would be seed. Yep.
A?
But we're already at a Series A level because of the size of the team and all the things that we've accomplished.
Mhm.
We've built the product out, the beta product. Our mobile application is in development right now. I mean, everything is locked and loaded for investors to go ahead and plug in. If it weren't for the valuation, we would go right to Series A,
Mhm.
somewhere in the range of 12 to 20 million, Series A. So we anticipate right after the seed round, the Series A is going to kick right back to back.
Great. So, what it just as a CEO, what's been your experience kind of going through the fundraising process? Is it do you find it as painful as everybody
Yeah,
else? Or did you have it a little bit of a different experience?
it's it's like running on high rocks, man. it is I think it's tough for anyone, and me being a founder of color is double hard because people don't take me at face value.
Mhm.
Where they might say, oh, okay, well, yeah, let's go ahead and throw them 2 million and see what happens. But a lot of founders of color invest. It's a little different this year. There are a lot of funds that are coming out now, so it's a lot better than what it was, but still less than 2% of venture capital money goes to Black founders. And we have an extremely diverse team. Um, for everyone, and we have people from Romania, Mongolian, they're Mongolian and French, you name it. We have them on the team, so that's really awesome too, just to experience the different cultures of the company. But yeah, it's tough. Raising that first check is really really tough. But you can't really say the wrong thing to the right investor. The right investor that sees it is going to be very very wealthy.
Mhm.
Really really believe that. But if I don't want people, if you're going to come to the party once you hear noise, we don't want your check.
Yeah.
Um, that I really feel, and I don't say that in an arrogant way. You need to believe in us when you need to believe in us because, if you didn't get me play in high school and, now we're older and you've turned ugly and like, hey, what's going on, Brandon? I'm going, hey, good to see you. Hope all is well. Bye.
So, how were those first like is this your first time kind of pitching investors? What was the
Well, not in my entrepreneurial career. No, for Aphid, this is our first time going for our race.
so as you were kind of going through the process of kind of talking to investors and so on, did you have your CFO when you started the conversation? Did you have this? Did the CFO come later? Did you kind of have to stand there by yourself? What was that journey like for you in terms of the support that you got, the people that you were able to meet, and so on?
Yeah, it's been great. It's really about timing. That there are a lot of interested investors, and some are, they haven't closed their round yet. Some don't have it together, but the feedback has been great. Honestly, we were expecting a lot more pushback, but they all like the model. But it's just about the timing, right?
Mhm.
Who's actively raising around, who doesn't have a competitor in their portfolio. But we have a good mix. Lucy, our CSO, talks to investors. Our CFO, Shree, he talks to investors, and I reached out myself to investors and talk directly. So
Mhm.
I think that's important that they get to talk to the source and see what makes me tick.
And is the getting those first meetings? What was that kind of process like? How did you get in front of in front of somebody at an investor in your first kind of the first few meetings?
Yeah, really, just warm market people that I've met at blockchain conferences over time, and I've actually met them in person for the most part, and then just reconvening and talking to them again. And some of those investors you have to swing back, right? Because we had a different model at one particular time, or just keeping them abreast on everything and just
Mhm.
seeing the progress of what we're doing. That's how the meetings have been occurring. I think warm market is the best.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into the next part of the interview here, which is kind of taking a look, moving away from the infrastructure and kind of the strategy deployed to date and history into looking into the future. So, um, how do you view, you obviously started the business in a very tough economic environment, right? Everybody's remote. There's a pandemic going on. What How do you view the economy as it is today evolving, and how does that the evolution of the economy is going to relate to or impact AFID?
Yeah, right now is a very interesting time. I think what the pandemic has done is allow people to be more optimistic into different ways of making money,
Mhm.
adapting to virtual work, working from home. There are a lot of businesses that won't be able to recover or get people to go back into the workforce or go to a building and fight traffic because they're like, hey, I like this at home thing. But then there's also, in my opinion, the people who I believe like that distraction and not have to think about what they want to be in life by going to work and just that distraction, right? When people are at home, they've been at home during the pandemic, they don't know themselves. So they like the busyness of, oh, let me go to work. Let me distract myself so I don't have to face the mirror of myself of what I want to do. And it eats up most of your day. When after you get off work and then you fight traffic, especially here in LA, you probably get home at about 7 o'clock or so. By the time you cook or whatever, your day is finished. You're already preparing for tomorrow. And then you just do this stupid treadmill thing 5 days a week for 40 years. And that's just, it's old school. It's 1920s. We have to get rid of that crap. It's old and it's dead. So what we're doing, Aphid is saying, let's take the job workforce economy from horse and buggy to the electric car overnight. How do we do that? You don't trade time for money. You automate another version of yourself and have it sell things for you and do things for you. So you might have your bot selling something on a website, but you might also want your bot to do automated trading for Forex or cryptocurrency. And now you're making $5, $10, $12 here from all of these automated things, and you're supplementing your hourly income. Just depending on how good you are, and you can go in and tweak it. But that's our new model. That's how we're changing the economy. We call it, it's patent pending. It's called the workforce leveraging system. So that's the landscape now of how I see it and how we're going to change that.
So you're there's two components that I see here that you're talking about, right? There's the market, right, and how the market itself is changing and how Aphid fits into it, but it's also the culture piece, right, inside of Aphid. So in the culture piece, do you when you first started, right? I imagine that you didn't necessarily have the exact definition as to whether you're going to be entirely remote or in an office.
Mhm.
But where do you see that, from a cultural perspective, and having the team either remote or in office? Let's say the pandemic ends, right?
Right.
Where are you going to head, and sort of from a cultural perspective?
So culturally, this pandemic has prepared our oncoming users for our B2C. People know how to trade now.
Mhm.
They're used to working from home, doing things digital, looking for other sources of income. So there's less barriers of entry for them to, or less education that we have to do once we onboard our bot controller users, the humans, the people.
Mhm.
So from a cultural perspective, I think it's molded them into something different, right? Of the virtual work,
Mhm.
and the handoff is going to be a lot more seamless.
And earlier, you mentioned that you were kind of in um, sales and marketing, then customer support. What verticals, like, do you intend to just to be vertical agnostic, or do you intend to be
Yeah.
niche out in a vertical?
Yeah. So our first vertical that we're going after is the cannabis industry. So our initial niche industry that are the clients that we're onboarding right now are cannabis stricken only.
Mhm. And why did you choose that industry? And
They have a really big need in terms of the data that they need on
Mhm.
their end for their customers. Um, it's an untapped market. That's what we wanted our focus to be.
Mhm.
Um, for our clients, they really didn't know that it existed because a lot of those repetitive tasks and that manual labor, most likely you're repeating the same thing to new customers
Mhm.
over and over and over, right? Probably sometimes 3, 5 times a day, depending on how many visited web traffic you have, right? So we automate that, and the chatbot can increase your sales up to 67%. It reduces their operational costs by 30%. And then you also, by using bots, you don't have to worry about lack of memory, meaning like the robot will know what it knows and it won't have a lapse to forget about something if it's asked a certain question or you it has like a button option. It's very direct in its answer.
So, and then in that within that product, is there any what direction do you intend for the product itself to go in the business? Like in
For
the but
no, could you repeat it?
yeah,
Repeat the question.
so no, so normally businesses go from right alpha, beta, then they're in market,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they're operating there, but then they usually have kind of a multitude of versions that they are preparing and thinking about for their product in the future. It's just that they oftentimes don't have the bandwidth and the capability to actually execute on those multiple versions or product types. Do you have are you in that category as well, where you're only looking at one product right now and expanding into other product categories, or do you intend to stay hyper focused?
Yeah, so we're gonna stay hyper focused for now, but we're eventually going to open it up post pilot for people to choose different industries. So if they want to choose a banking bot, they can choose a banking bot. They want to choose a real estate bot, they can choose a real estate bot. It'll be plug and play for them. They can create their own, or they can download, purchase a plugin created by someone else in the ecosystem. So we do have a bot marketplace that's open for developers to go in and create what they want.
Interesting, great. So, how about for the business itself? Where do you see the team going in general in terms of size that you guys work, and how does that relate with um, moving out of beta and into kind of traditional market? Where do you see that the evolution of the business going forward for the next 3 years or so?
Yeah, because of our team size, I don't anticipate us to do a massive amount of hiring until the Series A point.
Mhm.
We have a pretty large team right now, so we might onboard maybe one or two, like some
Mhm.
more blockchain engineers, because we do have a blockchain cryptocurrency aspect of our ecosystem. But that's really it. We won't do too much until then in terms of team size.
Mhm. And how do you anticipate them being able to? Is there any significant economic components um, that are presenting as a challenge or as a piece that you need to solve in order to be able to prepare for that future? So, for example, going from a company that is a seed company to a Series A to then a Series B, the finances look considerably different, right? What do you see how- when you look at that future from a financial perspective? Where do you see the challenges, the pivotal points, the pieces that require your attention and that you're very careful about?
It's really just the data centers
Mhm.
is the only thing that can put a snag. But as time goes on, it gets cheaper. So it
Mhm.
just depends on how fast we scale out. But I mean, our goal, the way that we've been set up economically, is our clients are really paying for the data that they're using, and ours just has markup,
Mhm.
just so we stay afloat.
Got it. And so, last question here. As you're looking towards the future, right? I'm a business owner myself, and what there are things that really excite me about the future, and there are things that
Mhm.
make me concerned, right? What are those things for you?
The biggest, I It's a tough question because we don't know what that is, but I know quantum computers are coming.
Mhm.
So it's going to be really interesting because I want to see blockchain really sustain for a good amount of time. But I know quantum computing is going to change a lot of things. People are scared of AI to take jobs, but that's why we created Aphid in the first place. So we're serving our mission in that. I don't have any fear of that. Even though
Mhm.
Ray Kurzweil says by the year 2045 that robots will completely have surpassed humans in intelligence, right?
Mhm.
And then also predict cyborgs by 2030. And Elon Musk has already jump started that with Neuralink, putting the devices on our head and,
Yeah.
you know, um, things in our brain,
So,
which is really interesting, right? But because I was like, yeah, you can't say you're scared of AI and then come out with something like that. But he wants to create some type of symbiosis between us and AI.
mhm. So do you see that as a threat for Aphid, or do you see that as an opportunity in terms of kind of so quantum computing? Obviously, would that change significantly what the computing world looks like, where you would have to either adapt to quantum computing or not, or do you see that as kind of something that's going to empower you even more?
We'll adapt. So as you look at the market, is basically just switching things over. I know that it's a lot easier for companies like Google, Apple, these bigger companies. They have a lot more money to. I mean, they can run the show. Google runs the data show,
Mhm.
right? So blockchain is important because of the decentralization aspect to make sure that four companies, five, however many it is now, are not running everything and stumping these small startups. I don't see Neuralink as being a threat. I really believe in what's for you is for you, and it's enough to go around. Uh, Burger King doesn't have to lose for McDonald's to win.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank you, Brandon, for taking the time to interview with us. This was fantastic, and I wish you the best of luck with AFE in the future. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.